Hi guys! In the previous lesson, we discussed about external economies of scale, and today we continue to explore how economy of scale generate incentive for international specialization and trade. We now focus on economies of scale that are internal to the firm. Simply said, the way firms behave in the global economy. There are four learning objectives in this lesson, and I hope that by the end of this lesson, you should be able to first discuss what internal economies of scale are. Second, describe the types of economies of scale and market structure. Third, understand how internal economies of scale and product differentiation lead to international trade and intra-industry trade. Last, describe how economic integration can lead to both winners and losers among firms in the same industry and understand the motivation for foreign direct investment across economies. In the previous lesson, we pointed out that there are two economies of scale. One is external to the firm and the other one is internal to the firm. We have discussed external economies of scale in the previous lesson. Hence, today we discuss internal economies of scale. Internal economy of scale occur when the cost per unit depends on the size of an individual firm, but not necessarily on that of the industry. Let's recall based on the hypothetical example used in previous lesson. Imagine an industry that initially consists of 10 firms, each producing 100 widgets for a total industry production of 1,000 widgets. Now, suppose that the number of firms is cut in half so that each of the remaining 5 firms produce 200 widgets. If the cost of production fall in this case, then there are internal economy of scale. That is, a firm is more efficient if its output is larger. Therefore, internal economies of scale imply that a firm average cost of production decrease when more output it produces. When there are economies of scale, however, large firms may have an advantage over small ones, so that markets tend to be dominated by one firm or more often by a few firms. If this happens, production may be imperfectly competitive, also known as imperfect competition market, in the sense that excess or monopoly profits are captured only by large firms. Simply said, internal economies of scale result when large firms have a cost advantage over small firms, causing the industry to become uncompetitive. Let us now compare between perfect and imperfect competition market structure. In a perfectly competitive market, a market in which there is many buyers and sellers, none of whom represent a large part of the market. Firms are price takers. That is, they are sellers of product who believe that they can sell as much as they like at the current price, but cannot influence the price they receive for the product. For example, an apple farmer can sell as much as apple she likes without worrying that if she tries to sell more apple, she will depress the market price. The reason she need not to worry about the effect of her sales on prices is that any individual apple grower represents only a tiny fraction of the world market. When only a few firms produce a good, however, the situation is different. To take perhaps the most dramatic example, the aircraft manufacturing giant Boeing shares the market for large jet aircraft with only one major rival, the European firm Airbus. As a result, Boeing knows that if it produces more aircraft, it will have a significant effect on the total supply of planes in the world and will therefore significantly drive down the price of airplanes. Or to put it another way, Boeing knows that if it wants to sell more airplanes, it can do so only by significantly reducing its price. In imperfect competition, then, firms are aware that they can influence the prices of their product and that they can sell more only by reducing their price. Here, we discuss an example of pure monopoly, a market in which a firm faces no competition. The monopolistic firm face a downward sloping demand curve, shown in the figure as D. The downward slope of D indicates that the firm can sell more units of output only if the price of the output falls. A marginal revenue (MR) curve correspondent to the demand curve. Marginal revenue is the revenue the firm gains from selling an additional unit of output. Marginal revenue for a monopolist is always less than the price because to sell an additional unit, the firm must lower the price of all units, not just the marginal one. Therefore, for a monopolist, the marginal revenue curve always lies below the demand curve. The monopolist earns some monopoly profits, as indicated by the shaded box in red color, when price larger than AC. Monopoly profits rarely go uncontested. A firm making high profits normally attracts competitors. Thus, situations of pure monopoly are rare in practice. In most cases, competitors do not sell the same product, either because they cannot due to legal or technological reasons, or because they would rather carve out their own product niche. In some cases, this occurs when there are only a small number of competing firms in the market, such as the market for fast food restaurants. This leads to a market structure called oligopoly. The pricing decisions of firms are interdependent in an oligopoly market structure. Each firm in an oligopoly will consider the expected responses of competitors when setting their price. This response, however, depends in turn on the competitors' expectations about the firm behavior. And we are therefore in a complex game in which firms are trying to second-guess each other's strategies. Another case of imperfect competition known as monopolistic competition. This market structure arises when the equilibrium number of competing firms is large and no firms attains a substantial market share. Then, the pricing decision of any given firm will not affect market aggregates and the demand condition for the other firms. So, the pricing decision of the firm are no longer interrelated. Our following discussion will focus on the monopolistic competition. Monopolistic competition is a simple model of an imperfectly competitive industry, which assumes that each firm can differentiate its product from the product of competitors. Hence, allow firms to remain price setters for their own individual product variety or brand. However, more competition implies lower sales for any given firm at any chosen price. Each firm demand curve Shift in or left means decrease when there are more competitors. Lower demand in turn translate into lower profits. Underlying the application of the monopolistic competition model to trade is the idea that trade increase market size. In industry where there are economies of scale, both the variety of goods that a country can produce and the scale of its production are constrained by the size of the market. However, by trading with each other and therefore forming an integrated world market that is bigger than any individual national market, nations are able to loosen this constraint. Each country can thus specialize in producing a narrower range of products than it would in the absence of trade. Yet, by buying from other countries the good that it does not make, each nation can simultaneously increase the variety of goods available to its customer. As a result, trade offers an opportunity for mutual gain even when countries do not differ in their resources or technology. This figure illustrates how a monopolistically competitive market works. The number of firms in a monopolistically competitive market and the prices they charge are determined by two relationships. First, the more firms there are, the more intensely they compete, and hence the lower is the industry price, represented by curve PP. Second, the more firms there are, the less each firm sells, and therefore the higher is the industry average cost, represented by curve CC. So, if the price exceeds average cost, that is, if the PP curve is above the CC curve, the industry will be making profits and additional firms will enter the industry. Whereas, if the price is less than average cost, the industry will be incurring losses and firms therefore will leave the industry. As mentioned earlier, that trading with other countries increase market size, which lead to more productions and choices in terms of goods and services available. Simply said, international trade can create a larger market. Here we discuss specifically on intra-industry trade, which refer to two-way exchanges of similar goods. Intra-industry trade enables countries to benefit from a greater variety of goods at a lower price. Firms also can consolidate their production and take advantage of economy of scale due to large market size. The proportion of intra-industry trade in world trade has steadily grown over the last half-century. A smaller countries tend to gain more from integration than a large country, and about 25 to 50% of world trade is intra-industry. Intra-industry trade plays an even more prominent role in the trade of manufactured goods among advanced industrial nations, which account for the majority of world trade. For example, the United States. Industries that have the most intra-industry trade are such as pharmaceuticals, chemicals, and specialized machinery, which require relatively larger amounts of skilled labor, technology, and physical capital. We have a simple example to illustrate the effects of intra-industry trade which increase market size. The idea is simple. That is, increase in the size of the market allows each firm to produce more and thus have lower average costs. Suppose, for example, there are two countries, each with an annual market for 1 million automobiles. By trading with each other, this country can create a combined market of 2 million automobiles. In this combined market, more varieties of automobiles can be produced at lower average cost. CC1 shift to CC2, then in either market alone. Simultaneous increase in the number of firms from N1 to N2, which leads to the increased variety of goods, have made the price fall from P1 to P2. Thus far, we know that international trade allows for the creation of an integrated or combined market that is larger than any one country's market. As a result, it is possible to simultaneously offer consumer a greater variety of products and lower prices. However, not every firm performs in the same way. When firms differ in terms of their performance, economic integration generates winners and losers. Increased competition tends to hurt the worst performing firms. Therefore, they are forced to exit the industry or the market. The best performing firms take the greatest advantage of the new sales opportunity and expand the most. When the better performing firms expand and the worst performing ones contract or exit, overall industry performance improves because only the best performing firms remain. Therefore, trade and economic integration can have a direct impact on industry performance. These two figures shows the performance differences across firms. Figure A shows the demand and cost curve for Firm 1 and 2. Firm 1 has a lower marginal cost than Firm 2. Both firms face the same demand curve and marginal revenue curve. Relative to Firm 2, Firm 1 set a lower price and produced more output. The shaded areas represent operating profit for both firms. Firm 1 earns higher operating profit than Firm 2. Figure B shows the operating profit as a function of a firm marginal cost. Operating profit decreases as the marginal cost increases. Any firm with marginal cost more than C star cannot operate profitably and have to shut down and exit the industry. Now, let's see the winners and losers from economic integration. These two figures illustrate how increased market size generates both winners and losers among firms in an industry. The low-cost firms thrive and increase their profit and market share, whereas the high-cost firms contract and the highest-cost firms have to exit and leave the industry. These composition changes imply that overall productivity in the industry is increasing as production is concentrated among the more productive, those low-cost firms. All else equal, we expect increased competition and a bigger market size. Hence, the demand curve for all firms changes from D to D apostrophe as shown in Figure A. The effect of the shift in demand on the operating profits of firms result in different marginal costs. Firms with marginal cost between the all cut off, C star, and the new one, C star apostrophe, are forced to exit. Some firms with the lowest marginal cost level, before C star apostrophe, gain from the integration, hence their profits increase. In the previous lesson, we discussed that certain locations have the advantages than the others. Recall the example about China, which the country provides low-cost labor. We now discuss why a firm would choose to operate and affiliate in a foreign location. The answer depends, in part, on the production activities that the affiliate carries out. These activities fall into two main categories. First, the affiliate replicates the production process that the parent firm undertakes in its domestic facility elsewhere in the world. Second, the production chain is broken up and part of the production processes are transferred to affiliate location. Investing in affiliates that do the first type of activities is categorized as horizontal FDI. Investing in affiliates that do the second type of activities is categorized as vertical FDI. Horizontal FDI is dominated by flows between developed countries. That is, both the multinational parent and the affiliates are located in developed countries such as the UK, US, Europe, so on and so forth. The main reason for this type of FDI is to locate production near a firm's large customer bases. Hence, trade and transport costs play a much more important role than production cost differences for this FDI decision. For example, at the start of the 1980s, Toyota produced almost all of its cars and trucks in Japan and exported them throughout the world, but mostly to North America and Europe. Due to high trade costs to those markets and rising demand levels, Toyota slowly expanded its production overseas. By 2009, Toyota produced over half of its vehicles in assembly plants internationally. On the other hand, vertical FDI is mainly driven by production cost differences between countries. This refers to those parts of the production process that can be performed in another location rather than in own home country. For example, Intel, the world's largest computer chip manufacturer, has broken up the production of chips into wafer fabrication, assembly, and testing. Wafer fabrication and the associated research and development are very skill intensive. So, Intel still performs most of those activities in the United States as well as in Ireland and Israel, where skilled labor is still relatively abundant in these countries. Chip assembly and testing are labor intensive, and Intel has moved those production processes to countries where labor is relatively abundant, such as Malaysia, the Philippines, Costa Rica, and China. In summary, economies of scale internal to firms lead to a breakdown of perfect competition. Hence, models of imperfect competition must be used instead to analyze the consequences of increasing returns at the level of the firm. In monopolistic competition, an industry contains a number of firms producing differentiated products. These firms act as individual monopolists, but additional firms enter a profitable industry until monopoly profits are competed away. A large market will support a large number of firms, each producing at a larger scale and thus a lower average cost than a small market. International trades allowed for the creation of an integrated market that is larger than any one country's market. As a result, it is possible to simultaneously offer consumers a greater variety of products and lower prices. The type of trade generated by this model is intra-industry trade. When firms differ in terms of their performance, economic integration generates winner and loser. The more productive, that is, the firm that able to provide lower costs, thrive and expand, while the less productive, that is, the higher cost firm, contract. The least productive firms are forced to exit the industry. Some multinationals replicate their production processes in foreign facilities located near large customer bases. This is categorized as horizontal foreign direct investment. An alternative is to export to a market instead of operating a foreign affiliate in that market. Recall the example of Toyota. Some multinationals break up their production chain and perform some part of that change in the foreign facility. This is categorized as vertical foreign direct investment. Recall the example of Intel. So, that's all for today and see you in the next lesson. Thank you and bye bye.